In progress.
Okay, good evening, everyone. This is Planning Board for March 12th, 2025. Pam, can you take attendance?
Sure. Michael Gore,
Here.
James Barr,
Here.
Austin Groner,
Here.
Robert Romer,
Here.
Eric Nyland,
Here.
and Michael Lau, Associate Member.
Here.
Okay.
All members are present.
Great. The first agenda item is the continued public hearing for our proposed changes to zoning bylaws. Pam, do you need to read something or do we just?
No, this is a continued meeting, so we don't
Okay.
need to read the public notice again.
Okay. Great. So the last time, I think we kind of finalized everything. Two main things after the last meeting is Pam and I met with the select board. Looks like we have an esteemed member with us here tonight. And then Pam also got comments back from town council. So maybe we start with the town council comments. So Pam, just you want to give an
Sure.
overview? Was there anything major that came out of Brian's
No,
review?
nothing major, but I thought it'd be best to go through it bylaw by bylaw, just so I can review what things are required to be, or suggested we change. Nothing significant or severely altering any of the proposals, but I think it's important we go over what has been amended. So let me pull this up.
So start with the ADU.
So he just put strike throughs on the deletions of the accessory apartments that we have in the existing bylaw. That's to the use table. Just to make it clear that that's what's to be struck. The others, these items are just formatting. He wanted us to clarify the difference between the large carriage house, which is allowed. There's an accessory apartment that's allowed by special permit for the reuse of carriage house and barns.
The barn, yeah, the barn bylaw. Okay.
Yes, so they used to both be referred to as accessory apartments, but now since we're separating the two definitions, we just added a clarification under the accessory apartment definition to specify that it excludes everything that exceeds the size is allowed under accessory dwelling units in section 250.21.d.
And that's the barn bylaw.
That's the accessory dwelling unit bylaw. So anything, if you reuse a detached barn that's under the square footage permitted under the accessory dwelling unit bylaw, you would apply under that bylaw, and it would be a site plan review by right permit. Because if you didn't do it that way and there was a barn to be reused for an apartment that was under the 900 square feet that's permitted for the detached, then it would be in conflict with the Mass General Law amendments.
Let's see. Yeah, I guess we never really talked about the barn bylaw when we did the original ADU. So I kind of think the detached ADU bylaw allowed for a larger square footage than the barn bylaw. Eric, do you remember? Was that true? It was almost like our detached ADU almost made redundant the barn bylaw in a sense.
In a sense, it did. Both required special permit, so it wasn't too conflicting, but now it would be. So we had to amend both definitions to make a differentiation between the two uses.
I forget like what the max size was in the barn, like what percentage. I don't remember. I'm sorry.
I think you can use
Yeah.
the entire barn if it meets
Yeah,
the
that's what I thought.
criteria for the historical structure. There is no size maximum on it.
Yeah, that's what I think I remember. Because I remember
Yeah.
Really?
I remember there being an argument on the floor worried about it being some huge, some 5,000 square foot barn being something huge or something. I don't know.
Okay. Okay, well, either way, I get, yeah, it doesn't matter as long as, so basically we're just updating this to reflect that.
Correct.
Okay,
And accessory to a single family home was struck from the definition, so it's, that's from the state definition. It was struck from there, so that was just updated. And then the
what do
gross
they,
floor,
sorry, Pam, what do they call it if it's not accessory, just an accessory?
an accessory dwelling unit has to be allowed by right in any residential unit where single family homes are permitted. But it can be accessory to a multifamily home, if
Oh, I
that
see.
makes any sense.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Even though
so if you
we
have
don't
a
have those.
duplex or
Yep.
a use greater than a single family, you're also entitled to an accessory dwelling unit.
Okay.
And that he specifies that when there are multiple principal dwellings on a lot, the gross floor area of the largest principal dwelling shall be used for determining the maximum size of an accessory dwelling unit. That just makes clear how you calculate the allowable size of the ADU.
Yep.
He wants us to specify the limited site plan because we do have a provision in our zoning bylaw specific to site plans where it requires a lighting plan, that type of thing. So we're just going to specify that it's a limited site plan review application, and we're going to create rules and regs which specify the requirements for the application.
Okay, so we're gonna are we gonna change our large ADU application then? Or is this for,
They're
For
all
all.
by, we're going to have one application for any type.
okay,
And
I see.
then the rules and regs will specify what we require, the gross floor footage, the gross square footage calculation, the parking requirements, the access to the unit, any grading, that type of thing.
Okay,
He thought that a requirement that the outside appearance of the premises shall remain that of a single home might be too restrictive, and he cautioned on the use of that. Because the Attorney General may interpret that as having a negative impact on the construction of ADUs. And we don't, because this is so new, we don't have any other reference. But this is pretty standard. At worst case scenario, the Attorney General will strike that comment from the bylaw. So it'd be my suggestion we keep it in.
is that referring to the primary structure or the ADU?
Both.
Both, okay.
I mean, I'm not even
That
sure
was-
how, I'm not even sure how it would look different unless like they use like completely different siding or, I mean. I
Build it
can't
like a
imagine.
castle.
Yeah. I mean, if they strike it, they strike it. But people can leave it.
That was basically it.
Okay.
And there was a grandfathering provision that we just kept in the bylaw that's currently adopted and enforced, which is pretty standard, and he suggested some changes to that.
Okay. Yep, doesn't seem like anything too crazy there. Anyone
Pam,
have
out of
questions?
curiosity, if the Attorney General disallows something and strikes it, and we think it's significant to the vote that got it in the first place, what are the implications of that?
It would get adopted with the Attorney General's stricken requirement is what how I believe that works.
Okay.
Isn't that like, what is it, a severability clause? Like they can strike stuff, but we don't lose the whole bylaw, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And they have the ability to do that, but this is a minimal requirement. I think they would just strike number 7, especially since it's a new state regulation that all municipalities are creating bylaws to address. That's it for the ADU. Would you like me to move forward with the next? Or see if
Yeah, I don't
anyone
have any
has
other-
questions?
Yeah, does anyone else have questions? I think it's all straightforward. Good, okay. The next one is into the floodplain.
Most of his comments related to the floodplain bylaw was that it doesn't particularly belong in zoning. We don't really have a choice on that. They're FEMA requirements and we want to be compliant with the new regulations that are in effect on July 8th of 2025. He has a comment here that he's waiting for a response from the AG's office to the zoning map amendment at town meeting because the flood maps don't exist, but they have been created. They're just not effective until that July 8th, 2025 date. So he thought that would be a fine amendment. I spoke to Brian about that in further detail over the phone.
And to be clear, he's not saying that the whole thing doesn't belong in zoning. He's just talking about the letter. Is that?
Yeah, like you typically don't require notification processes to
I
state
can hear
agencies
you.
in a zoning bylaw.
I
They're
know.
typically land use.
Um,
Zoning is
How
long-
long?
So do you need
to turn this on? No.
Okay.
Can you please mute if you're,
What day is it?
hi, Kim, can you please mute?
I'm trying to.
Thank you.
Your
Sorry, go ahead, Pam.
zoning's supposed to be specifically related to land use requirements, and this is kind of out of the realm of that. So he's just cautioning us that it doesn't really belong in zoning. Even though he knows FEMA's requiring it. So just
Okay.
kind of a caution.
Well, did he have any other suggestion where it might be?
There's nothing else you can do. Once you have a zoning bylaw which regulates a use like this, you can't remove it and put it in a general bylaw. So most communities are adopting these similar regulations. I think it was just a word of caution. Don't expand upon this under other areas in your zoning.
Okay.
There's an issue with this section. He said it requires a permit for all proposed construction. I spoke to FEMA in greater detail. They'll accept any permit, including a building permit. So I'm just going to clarify that requires any permit issued by the town of Bolton. And I spoke to Brian and he thought that would clarify what the bylaw's intent was. Without the special permit, when we define permit, that wouldn't. He mentioned concern about regulating a permit for agricultural facilities when they're exempt from zoning. But as long as we require, they're not exempt from all permits. So as long as we specify any permit issued by the town, any required permits issued by the town of Bolton, that comment should be addressed as well. And that was it. Most of his comments were, you can't do this, but you have to, kind of thing.
That's so weird.
Yes.
Okay. Anyone have questions on that? Okay. Next one, let's go to cottage overlay.
What issue we need to just, am I sharing my screen with you? With the cottage overlay here? Okay. Are you seeing it okay?
Yeah.
You could reduce the size of it. Yeah, that's good.
Is that better? Okay.
Yep.
One of the comments he had about this, which we should discuss, is that he cautioned that the Attorney General may have issue with us restricting the number of bedrooms that are permitted in each unit. I guess there's a recent court case where the Fair Housing Committee filed a lawsuit against a community which limited the number of bedrooms to 2, stating that they were discriminating against providing family housing. So he didn't know if the 3 would be an issue or not. He just wanted to raise it, that it's been a recent concern when they've reviewed bylaws in the state of
Did he have a-
recent. Even
he
though
have a
there are a
pro-
number of communities with cottage bylaws with 2-bedroom restrictions.
Did he have a problem with the 1850 square feet?
He did not. He said that's permissible and it's been used, especially as of recently in the Affordable Homes Act. So he thought that was a fair thing to include in the bylaw.
I mean, could you fit a 4-bedroom house in 1850 feet?
It's tight, but it's possible. I'm
Yeah,
assuming the rooms are pretty small.
Yeah, I think you could.
I mean, I don't know that they would want to, I don't feel like that would be a good utilization of the number of bedrooms that they have to develop, but we do want to make it as buildable as possible. I don't know. I do like the 3-bedroom thing though, so.
Yeah, I mean, I think you pushed hardest for that, Eric. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I'd say we just leave it in there for now.
Yeah, I
And
think so.
if they push back on it, then they do.
That's
mean, what
another
I-
one of the things they may just strike that sentence from the bylaw, but
I just don't know how viable it is to put 4 bedrooms in 1800 square feet.
It definitely is. I mean,
yeah,
Oh,
it's
it
definitely
is. Yeah.
possible.
I mean, my house it's 1900 square feet. We have 4 bedrooms.
And you're in one of them though, the office, right?
No,
Oh,
like
no?
we have the office on top of it. I mean, it
Okay.
can't be a bedroom because of septic, but
Yeah, you got it. Okay. Okay, leave it then.
That I also wanted to discuss the maximum square footage allowance. Currently we have 1,850 square feet of gross floor area as the maximum, and under our gross floor definition from the ADU bylaw, that would count basement area
If it was finished, just saying.
if it was finished or unfinished.
Yeah, we never really talked about basement.
So we can leave it as it is, and it would have to incorporate basement area, whether it's finished or unfinished, or we can change it to living.
we used to say conditioned space, right? I feel like that's what we put into
Does
one of the other
Does-
bylaws.
does Craftsman's Village have basements or are they slabs?
I think those are on slabs, but I'm not positive.
I mean, should we have said something slabs versus basements? Because I always kind of was just like sort of thinking slabs or more like split, was sort of like how townhouses are split where say in the back they're deeper than the front or something like half. I don't know. We didn't really
I
even
don't think
talk
we
about
should
this.
require, I don't know if we have the authority to
Yeah.
require slab versus basement, but I would,
Yeah. Yeah.
I would determine it by our definition in the bylaw of the 1,850 square feet.
And what's the
Heated living
definition?
area is what we've used in other portions of the zoning bylaw.
Living area?
Yeah,
Yeah,
that makes
heated.
sense.
I would say living area, yeah.
But Pam, just one quick question. You said that includes unfinished basements?
The gross square footage calculation.
Gross square
does,
footage
yes.
does.
Okay. Okay. Is that because it's potentially, you can finish it?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
So, I mean, if
And
it's
that's
a
the
basement,
state's definition for the ADU that they adopted, and we put that into the bylaw, so that's why we have to.
So actually, if we have the 3 bedroom limit though, if somebody wanted to add another bedroom in the basement, they wouldn't be able to do that. Because they'd have to go to the Board of Health and everything, and then that 4th bedroom would, add flow, which would mess up our calculations overall, right?
Right. If they were at
Well,
the maximum.
yeah, exactly. It's up to them, right? I mean, it depends how much capacity they have.
Mhm.
And they have, if they have the sufficient area that we're requiring in this bylaw for the extra bedroom. Because we use it to calculate
I
the
was just
number of
thinking,
bedrooms that are permitted on the property.
I was just thinking if they were maxed out.
If they were maxed out, then they couldn't.
It'd be funny, actually. I mean, I don't know, like, say you have like 2 spare bedrooms or something for the overall flow. It's gonna be like a race to
Who can build it first? Yeah.
finish. Who could build your basement up first? Yeah, it's interesting.
And then he just consolidated our affordable housing unit and where we eliminated the fee in lieu of option, so that's still there, but it was just relocated to the housing definition. And he noted if we wanted to provide a waiver option. I think we should allow a waiver option for everything, actually.
Yeah, I think so, because we want this to get built.
Yeah.
So we required 5-foot sidewalks, on one side of the roadway. And that's where he suggested it, but I think it'd be better if we can apply it to this entire section, so we have the option and it doesn't require, it wouldn't be able to apply for a variance because it's a special permit application. So at least we have the option with good cause.
So sorry, put the option for the planning board waiving that where?
Up at the top of this heading, so for street trees, I think shade trees, streets and driveways, anywhere where it states something specifically required, we would allow the waiver option.
So parking as well, or?
Parking, we already did.
Do we want to allow waivers for everything, or maybe
Yeah,
just
that
subset
kind of
of things, I think.
encourages waivers.
yeah,
One option, so it would be similar to the subdivision regulations.
Yeah, the building inspector is always, or maybe it wasn't, maybe it was one of the engineers that we use, was always kind of like, why put them in as bylaws if you're just, as rules, if you're just giving everyone waivers to them, like just remove them as requirements.
Well, because you never can calculate every circumstance when a site's developed, and sometimes it'll make sense in certain circumstances, depending on the case presented, and sometimes it won't. So I think the option is there. And if they can't meet one of these provisions, then it exempts them from applying for a development under this special permit option. Because you
Okay.
can't apply for a variance from a special permit. You're just not eligible to do it.
I also think it kind of maybe sets a framework for like what we would like to see. But
Yes.
if it's overly onerous in some particular situation, then we could waive it, I guess.
That makes sense. I just think there's a few things we want to, I think, insist upon. Otherwise,
Like,
this cottage overlay could just turn into a regular development, right?
yeah, well, what are we talking about?
Oh, yeah,
Walkways
the
and-
density and overall intent and all the design aspects will definitely stay the same. I was just referring to
Right.
things like sidewalk width, shade trees.
Yeah, I agree with
Um,
that.
So
We don't
which
wanna-
Six and seven.
Say
So-
again, which section is?
So
are we
sorry,
talking
just, so section 6 and 7, I think are the only ones.
Yeah,
Right.
Oh.
You were talking about putting it at the top of this heading. I would just say add to each 6 and 7, like, this requirement can be waived
Yeah.
or modified by the board.
I
Yep.
mean, yeah,
That
we
makes
don't wanna,
perfect sense.
we don't wanna waive the number, the bedrooms and the.
no, we
Yeah,
don't wanna
obviously.
waive it. No,
Yeah,
no, no,
exactly.
no.
That,
I'm
that,
just
that's
talking
what I was
about the
worried about.
design aspects, like garages must face the rear of the,
Yeah, okay,
that type of thing.
okay, I'm on board with that.
Well, so do you want to put the trees and the sidewalks down in the design section then? And say that anything design related can be waived or, modified with approval of the board? Because we already have that in for the design criteria. Although maybe it only applies to number 2 in G2.
I don't wanna say yes without taking a closer look at what we'd be moving.
Yeah.
Like, for 2, all these design aspects, I added waivers may be granted by the board with due cause,
Mm-hmm.
and then, so I
Wait.
would just,
Wait, I mean, but that's like we didn't want it there, right? We don't wanna
that's
waive
just for 2,
1850.
so it would apply to. No, we don't want it.
Yeah, we don't want it to apply to A or,
Right.
yeah, B.
I'll just put W's. There we go.
Oh, rear entry guys, yeah.
Yeah, things like that.
Wait, go back up a minute. Yeah, we don't want it applying to A.
No. No,
I mean, I kind of agree with what Mike was saying. I mean, it's kind of like getting late here to like rejigger a lot here, but like we have our core tenants that we don't want to change, but like design stuff.
Yeah, design stuff, we definitely should be flexible on that.
So I don't know if you needed to, if you want to like divide it into 2 sections, but you can do what you're doing too, I guess.
I'll add or as approved by the planning board so that they know there's some leniency there. And, yeah. Things that say maybe or make effort to are fine because it's not an absolute requirement. So shall be encouraged, which,
Mm.
that's all fine. So it would just, I'll highlight the 5 feet, so we know we'll apply it to that. Shade trees. Those are the only ones right now, so it's not too many. Okay, then we have 50% of the parcel size is preserved open space.
And so you said, I don't know if it was Concom or the land trusts who pushed back a little bit, or
It was just, what, I sent it to the Bolton Conservation Trust, just one of the members individually responded that due to the intent of the bylaw to provide housing, we may want to consider reducing this open space preservation requirement to 40%.
Did they have a reason why 40 and not 50?
I don't, it was really a 1-sentence email. I think it was to satisfy the intent because the purpose was the production of housing.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of see what the person saying. I don't know who it was, but
Andrew
like
Shabbat.
the like
He
the
said-
farm
yeah.
the farm and open space Fossbridge, its intent is to create open space, whereas the intent of this is to create housing. So you don't want to have anything That's too impactful.
Well, and Pam, he also said that because we're, allowing septic and other services on here, it's not the same as the sort of land that we're protecting in a Fosford where we're trying to get that to abut and adjoin existing trail systems.
Exactly.
He didn't
Yeah,
say that.
that's
I said
absolutely.
that.
Oh, okay, yeah. But I mean, I think that's a fair point. That's definitely a fair point. I mean, um, I'm going down to 40. We could even go lower.
No, I like
No,
it the way it is for the reason that you cited.
I also
Which-
think we're pretty generous with what the allowed uses within the open space. So
Absolutely.
I think keeping it at 50 is okay because 50% of the 50 can be used for stormwater, drinking wells, and
Right.
septic systems.
I am fine either way. 50 is fine. 40 is good too. You can get some more units on the property. Which
Well,
is
you can't, right? Because we
Well,
create,
depends.
don't we create the gallons allowed based on the 50%, right? Not on the
Yeah, sorry.
100%. I mean, we create it based on the 100%, not the 50%. So that what we preserve or not doesn't matter, right? In the number of bedrooms allowed. Am I right, Pam?
but the cap could change, right? Like the cap could change.
Is it, because I think it's based on the full parcel.
The density wouldn't change, but your allowable developable area would change. So you'd have greater area. So you may have restrictive soils on a parcel, which would prohibit you from putting parcel somewhere. It may be restricted by wetlands. So restricting reducing the required open space preservation will open up a greater portion of the parcel for housing to be located.
Yeah,
But it wouldn't.
it removes constraints, right? So like,
Yes.
Yeah.
if it's constrained else, but for other reasons, you could have some more units there.
Or you could have
So-
more space in between units or things like that.
Or more
I mean,
space in between units, exactly.
Pam, but the calculation of like how we came up with the number of bedrooms based on the gallons per day or whatever. So that's
That would
based
not
on,
change.
yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Because that's based off of 100% of the land.
Mhm.
Right. So the number of total bedrooms won't change, but maybe you could spread them out more. That's it.
Yeah.
So
But the
you're not going
difference between the phosphorus and this are your ability to use open space basically
Yeah.
for development.
for infrastructure.
Limited components of it, but nonetheless.
I mean, we could play it out. I mean, if we get a couple people in and they think that it's not going to work for them, we could always go back and change this number. But I do agree that with that person that the intent is housing development versus, I mean, it's nice to preserve land as well, but the intent of this is
But
to
we're
build
giving
some
them
small
that
houses.
opportunity by
Yep.
allowing them to use open space for
Mhm.
septic and wells and other
Yeah.
things.
I agree. I'm just saying, I think we could probably let it play out, see how it goes, but
Let's try.
So everyone's okay with leaving it at 50?
Yep.
I think it'll work with 50.
Okay.
But I think if anybody asks during a presentation at the annual town meeting, that should be the answer. That what differentiates this is the fact that you can use portions of the open space for basically ancillary aspects of development.
I think it might also make it more palatable to people.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's consistent with phosphorus, so yeah.
Yeah, so the next note, he had some changes in we directly copied and pasted the open space and design elements from Fosford into here. So he just made a note to make sure we incorporate the comments, so we did that.
I see Todd Miller still works for us.
Yeah. I can't get it to change names. I don't know why.
There's somewhere in the settings of Word that you can change that name.
Yeah, I know.
I figured you knew it was me. Um, so this was one, we have a requirement, this is architectural design elements, that they pick 5 of these elements to incorporate into each dwelling unit to create visual appeal. I didn't know if we wanted to keep this in. This is from a model cottage bylaw created by the state.
Did he have something against this or?
Oh, he didn't comment on it. It was more of my,
Yeah, I mean, just 5 of whatever that is, 15.
Yeah.
I mean, seems
bay
like,
windows,
very
dormers, roof brackets.
seems
Okay.
doable. We're just basically asking not boxes.
Yeah, and then we require architectural plans. And then this, I suggested we delete this. We don't need a yield plan anymore. This is from the original cottage bylaw that we drafted you drafted, about 4 or 5 years ago now. So because we calculate the density based on the 10,000 square feet per bedroom of the parcel size, we don't really necessarily need a yield plan.
That's
Yeah,
true.
that makes sense.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, and it eliminates one of the impediments to development.
I think that was about it. So not too many changes.
One last question. Where does the soil testing come into that? Because wouldn't that normally be done with the yield plan?
I think they need to do that very early in the process, just to even understand,
No, it's
how buildable the parcel is,
I see.
right? If they don't have enough, good soil tests throughout the parcel, they can't do anything.
They wouldn't know where to build, essentially.
Yep.
And all,
Yeah.
I mean, also, I mean, we have a calculation just based on the 100% of the land. And if they can only do half of that, then it may not make sense, if they
Mhm.
just physically can't develop it.
Well, with shared septic and wells, maybe I don't know if that opens up more of those maybe poor soils to be buildable, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, okay,
I
thank
mean,
you.
I think that would ultimately be like Board of Health reviews.
But again, going back to the 50%, that's a tremendous advantage to them to be able to do it wherever they want based on
Yeah.
finding the best soil anywhere on the site.
Yep.
Okay, any other questions on cottage?
Pam, out of curiosity, in your discussion and research, how successful has this type of cottage bylaw been over the last few years?
I think it's becoming increasingly common with the housing shortage. I didn't find a ton of specific cottage bylaws, but I certainly found I didn't have trouble finding them. They weren't terribly common in and
Maybe
most
more
of
develop.
them they're being developed, but most of them were utilizing the 40B
Yeah, I was just gonna
Yeah,
say that.
permitting process. And this would
They're
allow us
popular
to
though.
have control over it.
Yeah.
What's that?
I mean, they're
Yeah, I
popular.
mean-
We definitely see, if you
Oh,
look
yeah.
out for them, you see a lot of them. So
Yeah.
And
And all the
this would,
regional planning agencies have created model bylaws and are doing training seminars for towns, encouraging that they consider these as housing options for communities to provide affordable housing.
yeah, I mean, also, I mean, if by putting a bylaw out there, we're basically kind of encouraging it. So somebody, a developer knows that, hey, we're not gonna be like dragging our feet every step of the way.
Um, so I think next up is the phosphid.
Mike, can I actually just, I don't know if Kate, if you're still on. I know we talked about like over the summer, your interest in this. Sorry, I wasn't able to attend the select board meeting. But I mean, what are your thoughts overall on this bylaw? If you're still here,
I see Kate there, but
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
muted, so.
Oh, there.
Sorry,
There
I
we
was
go.
away for a minute. What was the question?
Oh, I was just saying, I know we talked over the summer about cottage overlay. Like, and I'm sorry, I missed the select board meeting where you kind of discussed it, but like, what were your general thoughts on this, if this kind of meets what you were thinking or not?
Well, my personal thoughts are that it was sort of long overdue. I think it's great. I think it's a good way to start addressing some of the housing issues. So I was really happy to see it.
Okay.
And again, with the phosphid, this is our existing phosphid. We increased the open space preservation and created the 4-step design process we reviewed with Randall at the planning seminar that we had over the summer. Brian didn't have too many comments on that. I had a question though. Currently, we allow stormwater management treatment on the open space parcel, and those are typically conveyed to the Conservation Commission and maintained by the Department of Public Works. However, we want to shift that and require maintenance of stormwater systems be assigned to the HOAs. So it's still permissible. You can still locate the stormwater management facilities on the open space areas and allow them access and maintenance requirements through easements. But I wanted to just bring that up. And I know we've discussed it in the past.
I think it's a great idea to move it into the HOA.
Yeah, I feel like we've had questions about that in the past. Even though the assumption was always that the HOA would maintain it and not the town. So yeah, I mean, calling that out specifically is probably the right thing to do.
If this road eventually becomes a public road, like accepted road, and the stormwater is in the HOA, is there an issue with that?
No,
Because
no,
isn't-
it's done throughout Massachusetts.
Okay, I didn't know because I don't know if the town digs out like the drainage pond or something, if because it's in the HOA that would be an issue, or there's like a ownership kind of issue.
Through the subdivision process, we would require the HOA maintain the drainage.
Okay.
Treatment units that are outside the right of way.
Okay.
And that remains in the HOA even after the road potentially becomes public.
That's what we're proposing. It's not
Got it.
currently set up that way, but that's
Okay.
how we'd like to proceed in the future.
And if they don't maintain those structures and cause issue on the roads, what's the town's kind of recourse?
You'd have to put that into the HOA documents with a lien to be allowed to be issued
Mhm.
to the individual homeowners,
Is that something that
for
we
the town
can
to complete the
require?
work and collect the funds.
Is that something we can require?
Yes.
Okay.
How do we enforce that, out of curiosity?
We have to do it through a lot of legal documents and put it in the subdivision regs and incorporate it into your decisions.
So
I don't
in a
remember, sorry, Bob. I was just gonna say,
Go
I
ahead.
don't remember reviewing HOAs previously.
I've only seen them for common driveways in the Bolton files. I haven't seen them for subdivisions.
That's what I'm saying. I don't know if the process is
We
there.
require the operations and maintenance. And so that Yeah,
No,
that
we don't.
for definitely for that, we had one for that parcel over on Main Street on the Stowe line. We required them to have an operations and maintenance plan as part of that.
That on the lot that it services though?
Yeah, that two
Yeah.
parcel lot up there, because they had a weird setup,
Yeah.
like that was
That's
definitely part of it.
58 Main Street, is that what you're?
Yeah,
Yeah,
something
that's
like
a
that.
commercial
Yeah.
property. Yeah, I haven't
No,
seen
this
it
was
in
two
any
residential
subdivisions.
ones, but yeah. Yeah, yeah. So, well, sorry, so we're looking what at the section E? Like is this a large change that we're talking
This
about right
doesn't
now?
address that. I just wanted to make you aware that we're gonna be discussing that in the next coming fiscal year. So when
I see.
we set our
Oh.
goals for the year,
So that's
updating
not
our
in this.
subdivision regs.
So,
It doesn't
okay.
apply to this, no.
Okay, all right.
Gotcha. Okay.
But-
It seems
Yeah.
like a big change for tonight.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. And that wouldn't be done through zoning, it would be done through subdivision. So it wouldn't go
Okay.
to town meeting, it'd be done in the subdivision regs. I
Yep.
just wanted to bring it up, that's the direction we're headed, so that would create this type of situation if someone were to apply under a FOSBRD and put their stormwater facilities in the open space.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's a bigger discussion item. So yeah.
But I mean, yeah, I think we totally are aligned with that also.
Okay. The rest were just formatting issues that he. Oh, this is why. There's a provision in our existing FOSBRD that has a clause that says the board could review a hearing which may cause the farmland to be converted to open space land, and this is the conserved area, but we require farmland to be preserved with an APR, and you can't really just change the use under an APR, so that may cause some conflict.
I mean, this is how it is today, right?
Yes. I don't think we've ever done a FOSBRD with farmland that I've seen.
I don't believe we have that I remember.
So my suggestion would be to change this must to a may be subject to an agricultural preservation restriction. Those are very difficult to change. It requires legislative action. And then we can just allow a provision for the FR to be converted to OSR if permitted by restrictions.
The phosphor that was one of the very first that was done on Farm Road, isn't that agricultural land?
I'm not familiar with that. I don't know. I'd have to look at that.
I manage that and I should know.
What phosphorus is on Farm Road? I can't. That one that was a 40B?
No, much earlier.
Oh,
Yeah, I forget the name of it.
I don't know.
I mean, it was like 2002 or something like that.
Oh, okay. Okay, so but for tonight, Pam, you're talking about changing the must to a may, but still, if they went and put an agricultural restriction on it, they still are in the same spot. They can't change it.
Right.
Yeah.
But requiring
mean,
the APR eliminates that option.
Okay. I see. Okay. So it could be considered farmland restricted, but not have an APR tied to it. And then if that were the case, then we could convert it to open space at some point.
Yes, through an amendment with the special permit.
How do you do that? I mean, how do you restrict it without being an APR?
The special permit restricts it, but it's easily amended. So you like to enforce additional protections on the property through the conservation restriction for open space land or the APR for farmland, but those where we're providing an option, if we require the APR, it's like not likely to be altered, which is not a bad thing. We can leave it in there. But those, I just wanted to note that that's one of Brian's comments, and it can't easily be changed.
Yeah, so Brian is essentially making a comment about our law that's existed for however many years,
Yeah,
that we haven't run into this situation. I mean, I agree, Pam. I think it's fine to change it to May. I don't have a huge issue with that, especially if, I mean, the next paragraph is saying that the board would allow it to be changed. So if that's the case, then we either remove 4 or we change 3 to May. I mean, that really seems like what the answer is. Right?
I think that would address the comments, yeah.
yeah, I mean, with the follow-on sentence, yeah, I said may make sense.
Or we just change must to May, and I think that,
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
We still have control.
yep.
We can just take out preservation on this portion. And just put agricultural restriction.
Yeah.
Yep.
He wanted us to name the entities eligible to hold the CR. And I would just copy and paste who can hold the ownership of the open space.
Okay.
It's just an additional form of protection.
And what are those? What is that list?
We have the town, the Conservation Trust, Homeowners Association, or of the residents of the Fosford.
What about? I mean, does the BCT ever come into play here? I mean, it's basically the residents or the town.
That's the Conservation Trust.
Oh, the Conservation Trust.
Yeah.
Okay.
It just doesn't
So-
restrict it to the Bolton Conservation Trust. It allows for any conservation trust.
So basically a third party can maintain the land or something.
If they're a land trust.
Yeah, yeah, okay.
So SVT is fine.
Say that
Sudbury
again?
Valley trustees.
Yes, that would be allowed.
Yep, so we can call that out.
Just some capitalizations. And this is a statement just saying this application may not be required to apply for a phosphid in order to apply for a traditional subdivision, and the planning board shall not have authority to deny a traditional subdivision application based upon this bylaw. There's new changes based on a court case that he cites here, which states that you can't require someone who applies for a subdivision to apply for a special permit. So you can't create a crossover because there are individual requirements.
I'm confused by that because the way we always worked is essentially they were supposed to present both to us and then we would choose which direction to go. And I think it was always kind of mutual that Phosphid was easier to develop. But now you're saying that somebody could do a traditional 2-acre layout if they chose without us
Yes.
having to say?
Yes.
Didn't we always have a say, or was it always just kind of like mutually beneficial?
We required it in our bylaw. For
We require
major-
them to present the
for-
phosphid,
Yes,
right?
for major residential developments.
Yeah, we required them to present it, but then I thought we could
You had the
choose,
choice after the presentation. Yeah.
but now we don't have the choice. You're
He's
saying.
making it clear that they have the choice to apply for the phosphid or not. They don't have to do both options.
Who had the
They
choice?
have to both present both options?
And who had the choice? Who had the choice to select which option? Is it the planning board or is
It was the
I mean-
planning board, yeah.
Yeah, in the
And that-
past, we could always select, but it was always kind of mutual that they wanted the phosphid, we wanted the phosphid, and
Yeah,
they had to develop the traditional just to get the yield essentially.
yeah.
But now you're saying that they could just bypass phosphid altogether, and I'm not really a fan of that.
Boy, I'm not either.
Yeah.
It's kind of,
But
as a throwaway
Why?
line at the end of this.
Yeah,
It's compliant with state law. That's
I mean, could we remove it and see what happens?
we could just be silent.
Yeah, just take it out.
I mean, your point is valid, that like no one has done a traditional versus
Right.
everyone has picked the phosphid, and I don't
Yeah.
feel like that's pressure from us necessarily.
No,
Yeah,
Like
right.
every time they preferred the phosphid.
Right. I mean, it's just easier to less roads, it's easy, and they could gang up infrastructure if they need to easier.
The incentives are there.
yeah, I
But-
don't
I
think
don't
they
know.
would have-
I'm not a fan of this as like a throwaway line right at the end. Like, I don't know. Like,
Yeah, but I think the point, like if it came to one where it says, I mean, this is good to know, right? If that's what the law is, if you're saying that the board ultimately had a decision over it, but maybe that's not exactly the case. And if someone had come to us and said, hey, we want to do a traditional,
Yeah.
and we said no, right? Then, I mean, this clarifies it. Like they have the right to do that. If that's what the law says, that's what the law says.
It's always an option, you just can't require it.
interesting.
and so there's so many other things that the law says that we aren't including that are assumed and are understood. Why do we pick this one out to make sure that everybody understands that this really is not the decision on the part of the planning board?
We don't have to, we can strike it. It's town council's recommendations.
Well,
I think I don't know. Personally,
I
don't
think
it
because
needs to
we
be in there.
currently require it if it's a major development, and that kind of makes it clear that you can't.
I would say strike it. We're not saying that. I mean, we're just like Bob said, we're just being quiet about it. It's not saying that we,
Oh, I mean, we never had it in our original phosphid.
yeah, I mean,
this line.
Now, I mean, a savvy builder is going to know that they don't
Yes.
need to do it.
yes, they
So-
certainly are.
I mean, I'm fine with leaving it out, right? I mean,
Okay,
Yeah,
I mean, we this puts us on notice that if someone ever took us to court over it, that we would lose.
I vote to take it out.
that's fine. It's not required in this section anyway, so I don't think.
And again, the fact that everyone does the phosphid, it's never even
Right,
been
yeah.
it's
Yeah.
it's never even been a point of contention.
Yeah, I
So-
mean, it's easier to develop a phosphid, I'm
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
It's less infrastructure, so it's easier on everybody. Less material to purchase.
So we'll take that out. Anything else on Fosbridge?
Nope, that was it. That's the end.
Okay, and I think we had one left, was the sign bylaw.
He states that, I have a provision, all signs must be accessory to the land use and building location on the property.
Oh,
he
Pam,
states
can you
it-
just bring can you share it, please?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Looking at a little. Sorry, I thought I had that, hit the button. All signs must be accessory to the land use and building located on the property, and he states that this would prohibit
Sorry.
off-site directional signage.
I still don't.
And we still can't see it.
I think what you're showing now is the Google. There we go. Yep, that
There it
works.
is.
Okay, sorry. I said too many buttons. All signs must be accessory. He said this would prohibit off-site directional signage. This type of content-based regulation may be problematic under the holding in Reed versus Gilbert, Arizona.
Ugh, I should have thought about the Reed versus Gilbert, Arizona.
I think it would
Must
be
be
fine. If
accessory.
not, they'll strike it.
I mean, but this, so I mean,
Accessory
later
to-
on, they talk about permanent versus temporary, right? And it's like, so this applies to a permanent sign.
Yes.
Well,
And-
so we have the welcome to Bolton sign, which
That-
is a
yeah,
directional
exactly.
sign. So how does that
Yeah.
fall into this?
Who puts that up? I mean, is it the town that puts that up? Is it, I mean, is it
Yeah,
EDC that does it?
Yeah, they got a
Yeah, it's a
sign
town.
permit for that.
But it's not an accessory to a land use and building.
Right. So it would require a sign permit from the select board.
On yeah, but is there a place for that?
That's how if it doesn't meet these requirements, it has the option to go for a sign permit to the select board.
So this is kind of like the as of right.
Yes, these are as of right requirements, and
Got
there's
it.
always the option to get a waiver from a
Right.
permit
So
application.
you don't want signs on public land to be as of right.
I don't want non-accessory signs, so you don't want like
Yeah.
a big sign for a business located at the corner of
Yeah.
some unaffiliated property.
Yep. I got it.
That was the
makes
intent
sense.
of that. Yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah, when you think of it, this is as of right, like Kate will enjoy not having to, have 50 sign hearings meeting.
Those are my favorite.
Yeah, you guys are gonna have nothing to do.
You just change residences to properties, for signs in residential zones. He was worried about the content-based regulation in that court case. So I just put non-residential signs. He suggested we include our subject to section 2A of the bylaw, but that would allow up to 36 square feet, which I thought was too large for a residential area. So I put a 16 square foot maximum on that with 4 feet by 4 feet. Does that make any sense?
So what is this? So you're saying in a residential area?
Non-residential.
No,
Non-residential uses in a residential zone.
No.
And what is that exactly?
Because right now that's 2 square feet, right?
Yeah,
I mean, so you're going from 2 square feet to 16 square
Yeah,
feet.
16.
No,
It's
huge.
not-
no,
No?
it's 2 square feet for new signs.
Uh-huh.
accessory to the residential structure, so home occupations, that type of thing. This would apply to non-residential uses in residential zones.
What are some examples of
What's the
that?
difference?
Can you give an example of that, Pam?
Like Baba Sushi Restaurant.
Okay.
Oh, I
Uh,
see.
That would be a non-residential use in a residential zone. I had a special provision for open space and trailheads, but we folded it into B because he said that's too content specific.
Would it be
And-
better to say, instead of non-residential use, say something like pre-existing non-conforming business in residential zone?
That's not any clearer.
And that's
It
what was
is to
there.
me.
That's what was there.
Eric, you're the
before.
only one who knows what pre-existing non-conforming is.
I just didn't understand what non-residential use. in
Yeah,
residential
no,
zone
I didn't either. So I mean, this doesn't apply to home occupations, right? Because that's a residential use in a residential zone, right?
They're not
I-
talking, they're not talking about political signs or anything like that, are
No.
they?
No, that's
No.
all separate.
That's a whole other thing, right?
Yep.
All right.
Yeah, no, so Baba Sushi is a good example. Like that is
Yeah,
that's a building that exists in a residential zone, and a 4 foot by 4 foot sign would be totally reasonable for them.
Yeah. A pre-existing non-conforming use in a residential.
Yeah, I had that and he crossed it out and put non-residential, I don't know.
But what I feel that first word is really important, pre-existing, right? Because A addresses all new signage, right?
Well, no,
No,
the
like, for
structure, like the
instance-
building is pre-existing non-conforming.
Because right
Ah.
now you couldn't build that restaurant in the residential zone. It's just because
Correct.
it's there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
and this would apply to trailhead signage, open space identification signage, that type of thing.
I mean, for
Well-
instance, like we sell duck eggs, so is it like, when you're selling, firewood or eggs or, farm stuff or whatever, is that,
I don't know.
does
So
that fall
that's-
into this?
I don't know where that falls under right to farm. I mean, I'm not
Yeah.
sure what signage for right to farm is.
Yeah, if you're a farm, you're probably exempt from this section of the bylaw. If you have a temporary sign up, we'll discuss that in a second. It's the next one down. If you have a permanent sign, you'd be restricted by the 16 square feet in area
Gotcha.
because that's a non-residential use in a residential zone.
Okay. I mean, I understand what you're getting at now. So
Yeah.
If you want to, we had pre-existing non-conforming and, Brian, the attorney suggested we change it to non-residential uses.
okay. I mean, all right.
Eric's going to
I under-
amend that on the floor of town meeting.
Yeah. Gonna get up on my soapbox. Who's with me?
Should we go on or are we ready?
Yeah, no, we can definitely go on.
Okay. And then temporary signs,
There we go.
we have to get rid of this because then it's content related. So we have such as pertaining to lease or sale of land on which the sign's located, scheduled function, events, or activities of a public or nonprofit. You can't dictate what it's for or what it says. You can only allow them or not allow them. So,
But
he
you're giving
suggested
like
we
an
strike
example
that.
there, right? Which is,
Such as, yeah.
I mean, I like having an example,
Yeah. Could we
Otherwise
say
it's kinda-
such as, but not limited to?
We can add that, sure.
Yeah. I feel like those kinds of sentences in this section would be very helpful because
yeah.
even the previous section, to me, I wouldn't know what are examples of those different categories. So I'm in favor of keeping this line here.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then we discussed at one of our last hearings about eliminating one sign per property.
Kate has a question.
I do. This is why I'm here. I'm concerned about the temporary signage language. Specifically, you know, there are a lot of people that have signs about, you know, kind of the yard signs that have, you know, messages that might support a particular viewpoint or something like that. And, you know, I'm concerned that this revision would impinge on people's rights to put up, those sorts of signs. Specifically, I'm thinking of people with pride signs, Black Lives Matter, those sort of general signs. I don't think you can limit to one sign per property if people have multiple views that they'd like to express.
Okay,
And I just think you guys need to be careful on First Amendment grounds in terms of what you're limiting here. So that was my big concern.
So I brought this up last time along those lines is, you know, if somebody's supporting candidates, typically it's multiple candidates and multiple signs, but you said it wasn't like including political signs, but I didn't see that here. But like the ones Kate brings up, you know, if somebody has a political message, we don't want to limit free speech, I guess. But
And also the amount of time that it could be put up for. So I just think you might need to give more clarity, or more description, which I know is problematic as well, but
yeah, political signs would fall under this temporary provision. And we had discussed at the last meeting, one sign per limit would actually infringe on people's rights, freedom of speech, because it's particularly, you could have two people in a household supporting different aspects or wanting to support more than one aspect. So we had discussed striking that, but we didn't come to a conclusion. So
I mean, where I always fall into these sort of things is it really a problem in town? Like, is there a problem with like where like somebody has like a million signs and like even if they did, I mean, what problem are we trying to solve here? With the time, I understand the like. You know, the
well,
permanent
like when
signs,
United,
but-
I don't want to, a business recently opened and had 12 temporary signs along the frontage of 117 that were neon. It was a little overkill, and I think we're just trying to allow for a provision to address that type of thing.
Well, can we just say that this only applies to business-related signs? Or maybe we should say explicitly that this doesn't include political signage of any
I don't
form.
know. I mean, even on that one you just bring up with United Cultivation, I mean,
They're all down.
I think it was good that, you know, I mean, they're a new business, you know, whatever, bring as much attention to it as you want. I don't know. This is a tricky one, this temporary.
Okay, so do you
sign
want to, we can just keep the size requirement and allow it for a period not to exceed 3 months. It could be as simple as that.
I still think you have the same issue on signs that people have. They're quote unquote temporary signs, but they are permanently on people's properties because they are expressing a viewpoint.
Is
Yeah,
the
this
way that
is
we can
really tricky.
exclude that?
It's not like we're some like HOA running around like regulating what people do in their front yard. And it's yeah, this is tricky.
Well,
I don't know.
we can just put the size requirement. So people don't install big obnoxious signs in residential zones.
I like that.
I mean, yeah, I don't like, is it a problem? Is this a problem in town?
I'm not aware that it's been a problem.
I mean, maybe, yeah.
I think we've
I know,
required permits though with the select board.
which is also, yeah. Well, I think when they want to put them along like the public way, like the public right of way or something. Like
They
not
can't do
just-
that,
Yeah,
right?
they can't do that, no.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's when people request, but if they want to put a sign in the yard, I don't know. Where do we stand today with temporary signs? What's,
Do we have any bylaw? Like, is
yeah,
there
No,
anything
it's
that-
not addressed at all. No.
Yeah,
I don't think we should address it personally.
Not
Do you
until
wanna
it
take-
becomes a problem. I say let's wait for it to become a problem and then do something.
Take the
Yeah,
entire thing out?
yeah, there's no need for us to fix something that's not an issue.
Yeah.
Hey,
Makes
are
it
you in
really
agreement with
simple.
that? Do you have input on that as?
I mean, I guess, you know, you've addressed my concerns. But, you know, I mean, the select board does still do temporary sign
Yeah.
approvals, you know, for, you know,
Is
is
that for public
there-
right away, Kate?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
not necessarily. I'm thinking also we did one for the church next to town hall. They've got a temporary sign approval from us for a clothing drive.
But like, I never understood, like when like the Lions come the Lions Club or whatever it's called, Rotary Club or whatever, they come before you to put some sandwich board to, like, you know, say they're going to be at niche, you know, Shartner Farm or something, like.
Right, but they're
I
doing
don't
that
know,
on property.
they're doing what?
They're doing that on town property.
Exactly. So that's, you know, on town property, if you want to put a temporary sign, sure, maybe we should regulate it, but like, this is talking about everybody's private land. I mean, like, I don't feel like if it's private property that we should have to like
Regulated.
regulate it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I think there are a whole lot of temporary signs that people put up, you know, when somebody has their roof replaced, you know, they might have a temporary sign advertising that company. Yeah, I'm not expressing an opinion one way or another, but I don't think the town's particularly interested in regulating where people put that up for, you know, 3 weeks, 6 months. Yeah, but there are lots of people that have various political or, you know, cultural signs that are quote unquote temporary, but they're permanent. You know, so I just think that if anything's going to be drafted, it's going to have to be much more carefully drafted than this.
Yeah, right. I agree. I mean, it's like this, it's just easier not to address it, in my opinion.
At least in this go round. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, but we want to be explicit that temporary signs are allowed, right? So I don't know if we need to put that in here. I mean, as this is written, were we saying that they need to get a sign permit for a temporary sign?
That's the way it is now.
But
Yeah.
on public land, right?
No, everywhere.
Yeah. We can't do this. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
Well, I mean, maybe taking out the time restrictions. I mean, I don't think there's an issue.
but like if you want to put out some political sign, you have to like go get approval. I mean, that's.
Yeah, Pam, is this I'm sorry, is this something new or is this just added on to something? Was this temporary sign, this language already in there, or is this all new?
No, there's nothing in there, but it has been regulated that temporary signs typically are required to go before the select board.
On public land.
On public land, yes, not on private.
I think they
Um,
all do, but I don't think anyone's out chasing people who put up a sign that says.
That's what I'm saying. It's all
No,
very
yeah,
arbitrary.
if that's the case, then I wouldn't even touch this.
Or maybe we could
Like,
just say temporary signs on public land must go before the select board.
I mean,
I don't think we need to do that. Yeah.
Okay, I mean,
We don't need to
that
do-
would be the bare minimum of what we should do. Like,
Yeah.
it all seemed very arbitrary to me. Like, why is the church, you know, have to go before the town to put up some like festival sign? You know, like I never understood what the border was of when you had to put signs up or not. I mean, when you had to get approval or not.
Yeah, because I can see this causing some, definitely, if you know one neighbor doesn't like what the other neighbor's saying, the next
Yeah.
thing you know, they're quoting this stuff. So
Well, and they're also, you know, they're like, yeah, like you said, neighbor reporting neighbor to
right,
the building inspector. Oh, this sign's big, or it's been up for too long, or something.
Right.
But we can just say temporary signs can be allowed by right, provided they do not exceed 6 square feet in area. And take out all other provisions. No, you don't want anything.
I mean, I guess that's reasonable, but like, if it's not a
I think you need to
problem,
say something. I mean,
why?
Yeah.
I mean, otherwise, you know, you could say, well, a temporary sign isn't allowed in the bylaw. Like, it's not defined in there.
I agree. If it's not there, it's implied, it could be implied that it's not allowed at all, right?
Yeah. If it
I mean,
doesn't fall into one of the existing categories.
I mean, I look at it as the other way, but I guess you could say temporary signs are allowed. I don't know, has it right? I don't, and if you put temporary signs are allowed as of right, but then you have to define what a temporary sign is
Mm.
in the definition section, then we're right back in the same boat, I think. Again, my
Not
opinion-
affixed to a footing
Oh,
or
yeah,
foundation.
not permanently attached. I think that's the point.
Yeah,
okay, I mean, if that's what how you want to define temporary signs.
And then if it becomes a problem, we could define it further.
Even, you know,
And what,
Jim's, you know, duck eggs that he was talking about there. It's like that, to me, that seems temporary. If he had to move that inside, he moves it inside. It's not like something he installed with concrete into the,
Nope, completely movable.
yeah.
can we,
I mean,
can we use Jim's duck eggs as an example here?
Throw,
With
we'll throw
your
some
address?
business your way.
It's
Yeah.
my
Your-
wife's, not mine. It's
Your,
not me.
your business is like gonna go through the roof after this meeting,
Yeah.
Jim.
So
You're getting
how
tons
does
of free
this
publicity.
sound? How does this sound? Temporary signs not permanently attached to a foundation or footing, such as but not limited to those pertaining to lease or sale of the building on which the sign is located. A scheduled function, event, or activity of public or nonprofit organization will be allowed in all zones by right, subject to 6 square feet in area.
I mean, that's the most legally sentence I've ever heard in my life. I mean, I'd rather just,
But it's
Oh,
clear.
but-
I think it's clear though.
is
Yeah.
it clear?
But do we want to
I
say
think
on private
it's clear to
property
me.
or
I don't think we-
Attached to a
I
foundation.
can.
as opposed, I mean, because apparently, like, I don't know, the stuff in the public right away, like that still needs to go to select
Yeah.
board.
Not permanently attached to foundation.
Right.
So we're saying any sign is basically, that's not permanently attached. If it's under 6 square feet is allowed. And what's permanently attached, like cement footings? I don't know what permanently attached is.
Permanently attached could be to a post. You know, in the ground, like a mailbox.
I'm
Type.
very squeamish about this whole thing. I remember one time we were like looking at like regulating bridges on some private driveways. And we were writing up this whole bylaw and I was like, well, how many like people this is? It was really like 5 people. So like we're writing this whole bylaw for 5 people and we haven't really had an issue. So I don't know. It's like,
It's for those 5 people and then everybody else in the future who could use that.
yeah.
It's already been
and
an issue once and since I've been
Signs, you're
here,
saying?
so, I don't know.
the
Yeah,
sign,
yes.
not permanently attached.
You have by right twice in there.
Oh, do I?
Yeah.
Will be allowed by right in all zones by right.
And again, are we saying that this is for residential? Or
It doesn't
so-
specify.
So
Like,
it'd
do
be-
you actually call out anywhere in here about being signs on public property? Is that
I
feel
mean,
like
if
at
you
some
want,
point we had that.
if you want to say temporary signs on
Oh, there we
public
go.
property, temporary signs on public property need to be approved by whoever or something.
Yeah, I think
You
we
want
should-
it in there?
think we should
They're
add
the
that.
property owners, so they would have to approve it, but you want it in there?
And where?
All signs on public property must,
I think that should be
that makes-
somewhere
That
up
makes sense to
above,
me.
not
I
not
don't
in
think
the
we need
temporary
it.
one.
But
Then
they're
why
the
do we need the
owners,
other
the
one?
owners have, what's that?
I said, if we don't need it on the public property, then why do we need it at all?
Well, we're owners of the public property, so we control
Yeah.
what goes there and have to
Okay.
be the applicant, yeah.
I'm just saying, where in the general bylaw does it say that you can't put a sign on public property without?
She's saying it isn't in there, but it's
It
just like
isn't.
we're the owners, so we, you know, we
Oh.
have the right to like just
I
take
see.
people's signs down, I guess.
Hmm.
Okay.
Or permit them to put them up.
Yeah.
Either one. Subject to these restrictions with a waiver allowed from the select board.
Another one I'm gonna have to get before the town meeting and rile.
Yeah,
people
no,
up.
you are definitely covering this one, Eric.
I don't think so. You got them all.
Thank
It's
you,
best to have
Vance.
it's best to have a nice solitary, like one person presenting everything. I think you'll be busy.
Okay, so let's just step back for a second here. So the point of these is to vote to approve on these tonight, right, Pam?
Yes,
Okay, this one I think,
recommend approval at town meeting is what you
Yeah.
vote for, yeah.
and do we have any time to discuss this at our next meeting?
No,
And where'd you get the 6 square feet from? Is that just
it's
out
a
of your head?
typical yard sale sign size,
6 square feet, so
2 feet by 3 feet.
2 feet by 3 feet.
I mean, that's. I guess it is. You know, all those signs are all. What are all those political signs? Those are. It's like
Smaller, I think.
They're 18 by 24.
18 by 24, so 1.5 times 2, so 3 square feet. You can have like 2 times that. Yeah, I guess you don't see many signs that big. But this is as of right, so if you wanted to have a giant sign, then I guess you could go ask for approval, right?
Yes, anything that doesn't meet this bylaw, like I said, can go for a sign permit before the select board.
Okay.
So, I mean, in theory, we're not making anything, whatever we do in here, we're not making it worse. They can always go to the select board.
Exactly.
So this is just
Right.
saying what's allowed as of right.
Yes.
Right.
Exactly.
I think that works.
I
They
think
would
works.
be required to apply for a sign permit, from the building inspector, but the temporary signs would be allowed by right with no sign permit.
And do we need to, do you call that out?
It's specified in the first paragraph, and then I allowed that will be allowed by right without, I can add without permit
Yeah.
under temporary.
Will be allowed by right without temporary announcement. What does that mean? Without temporary?
You mean by temporary, do you mean permit?
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
without
sorry.
permit.
I hate to raise this, but is this a way for people to get around permanent signage in a business context, which might be problematic?
Well, that's why I was asking about what's the definition of.
I can just add in a residential
Permanently-
zone.
I think
Okay.
that's helpful.
Well, then what
Then you
about
have to say in all
what
zones.
about the temporary signs in the business zone then? Then it's not regulated.
Then it wouldn't be regulated.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, once you start this, you just get dug into a
Yeah.
hole.
It's gonna go round and round and round.
Yeah. I don't know.
And I kind of agree with Eric with that. I don't see it as a problem right now.
I mean, yeah.
I don't think it's something that needs to be addressed.
But Pam, didn't you say there were some issues recently?
Just with one instance.
Frankly, I think that one was on Mass DOT property, wasn't it?
Some of it was, yeah, but I think the complaint that was submitted to the town was the number, the quantity, and
All right. Well, so if we don't call out the temporary signs, do we, where do you think that leaves people who put them up. Allowed, not allowed, same as it is today.
I would say
Tricky
it's
question.
unclear if it's not explicit.
Yeah, it's unclear.
Unclear.
Yeah, it's historically been interpreted as requiring one, but not enforced unless kind of a complaint is rendered.
So if we removed this part, then there's the sandwich board part still in.
Right.
This discussion is why I always never wanted to have the discussion.
Well, but I mean
Yeah.
the rest of it, the fact that like you don't, if your sign meets the sign bylaw, you don't need to go
Yeah.
to,
Yeah,
you know, select board. That makes sense, and we want
that makes
to
sense.
keep all that stuff in it, right? We're
Yeah.
trying to streamline things.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I think we as a board know that we're not going to, like, the police aren't going to go out, you know, kicking over people's political signs if it's been 15 days or whatever.
Mhm.
But once we put something in a bylaw, then it becomes enforceable. So I don't know, Pam, like, I think we rely on your guidance here. If you think it's better just to remove that section, and we can always, you know, we can always deal with that at some other point. But I mean, all the rest of it, the fact that we can get,
I think what you have here isn't too overly onerous. I mean,
Yeah, and I think if a business uses this to circumvent, this is actually more restrictive than what we have in our sign bylaw for businesses, so I don't know that they would use like a sign and post 6 square foot poster board to use as their business sign. I don't really see that being too much of an issue. And I think there would be cause to interpret that as a way to bypass I don't know what it would be bypassing though. It's more
Yeah.
restrictive than
because it's a
what
smaller
would be
sign,
allowed in the
right?
commercial district.
so we don't have like a time limit here. We don't have, what, I forget where
Content.
I was going.
We don't have
Yeah,
a
we don't have
content.
content. We don't have time limit.
Yeah.
It's just, if it's bigger than 6 square feet,
You have to get approval.
you have to get approval, which.
Yeah. This is just meant to streamline things, right? It's not meant to block anything. Is my
And it's so just by having this here, you don't have that gray area where if somebody has, 10 political signs, your neighbor can't go report you because, that's basically allowed as long as they're under 6 square feet,
Mhm.
Right.
So, I mean, it does get rid of some gray area. And this doesn't seem too strict, I don't think.
If we run into issues, we can always tighten it up in a future
Yeah, I agree with that.
article.
So do I.
All right,
Okay.
I mean,
Let's wait and see if this becomes a problem, and then we can always adjust.
yeah,
Right?
yeah. This one section is going to be an hour discussion at town meeting, or no discussion, who knows? You never know.
I mean, I like how it's put. It's kind of vague.
Yeah.
and-
Yeah. And what it does
Again-
is it basically allows your standard political sign. It basically says it's allowed. So that's good.
And again, the point is we're updating nothing at the moment, where it's totally vague, totally unclear,
Correct.
right? So
Right.
Yeah.
all the rest of it, I think, is excellent. I mean, this is fine too. Like
Yeah.
we're calling it out and trying
Yeah.
not to be onerous. So
Yeah. Yeah.
okay, I think we've beaten this one to death right now.
Please.
Is there anything
Please
else
move on.
that? Thank you. So no other comments on that. Perfect. Okay, that was it for town council's recommendations.
Yes.
Okay,
Anyone have comments on sandwich boards or?
I mean, isn't that a temporary sign? Why do we have to, I mean, what's the difference between a sandwich board and a temporary sign?
They're typically bigger.
Yeah, it's called out as bigger
And they-
and you have to bring it in it can only be out during business hours.
Yeah, it can be out every day for a year.
Yeah, but the point is
so can temporary signs.
Right.
Yeah, but this is bigger. Someone's actively managing it. It can't stay out overnight or when the business is closed.
I think it's fine the way it is.
This doesn't hurt my head.
No.
Okay, and that's just the provision of going to the select board for waivers.
Okay.
Did we do everything?
Please close this one.
So Pam, do we close the hearing first and then vote or vote first?
You're making a recommendation. You
Okay.
you can do that within the. We did all five, yes. Okay. We do need, he didn't have any comments on scenic road or site plan amendments, so
Yep.
we would want to incorporate those. We're not going to review those tonight. There's been no amendments,
Mhm.
but we do want to incorporate those into
Mhm.
our vote.
Okay, so again, do you want me to close the hearing first?
Yes.
Okay. I will make a motion to close the public hearing on proposed changes to zoning bylaws.
Second,
Michael Gore.
Aye.
James Barr,
Aye.
Austin Groner,
I
Eric Nyland,
Aye.
Bob Romer.
Aye.
Okay, hearing's closed.
Okay, and now you want individual recommendations of approval for each of the bylaws?
You don't need to do an individual vote if you feel like you're gonna recommend them all as we just reviewed through the amendments. You can make one motion to recommend approval of all 7 bylaws by name.
Yeah, and if somebody says no, then we can go through them individually, but
As amended and, as amended
Yep.
during the meeting.
I will make a motion to approve the 7 proposed zoning bylaw changes as amended this evening.
You
second,
want to make a recommendation of approval for the 2025 town meeting warrant?
For the 2025 town meeting warrant.
Second.
Michael Gore,
Aye.
James Barr,
Aye.
Robert Romer,
Aye.
Austin Groner,
I
Eric Nyland.
aye.
We're done with our bylaw changes for 2025.
Hooray.
Is that an
Town meeting.
all-time record?
Town meeting won't know what hit them.
Yeah.
They're not used to
I
this.
don't-
It's
I
been
don't
4 or
know.
5 years.
It's been a while, yeah.
Yeah, it has been a while.
Never let it be said that the planning board doesn't plan.
Yeah.
They already said that.
Okay, next item on the agenda is the request for release of covenant from lot 78 Century Mills Estates.
They're still here.
They are here, yes.
Hello, good evening.
Hello, good evening.
Thank you for waiting.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you for taking us on. I know you have a lot of other business you've been working on here.
Yep, so we discussed a couple weeks ago about releasing a lot from covenant that was purchased through a tax foreclosure auction. Do you want to give any update on from where we were last time?
Right, so as you had mentioned, where we left off last time, was the board was concerned with respect to the prior subdivision and the delays by the developer of that subdivision in completing the rest of the infrastructure and the requirements under the subdivision approval and the covenants. We left off, I had asked if we could suggest conditions for the board to consider if the board were inclined to release this lot. We did present a letter on March 3rd, and basically the request that we're making is is to confirm that the lot is still part of the subdivision. It's clearly bound by the subdivision requirements that were imposed on the rest of the subdivision in addition to this lot. And the subdivision is the reason why it could, I'll say theoretically, be built on as an undersized lot because it was approved for that lot size with the subdivision. I looked through the subdivision documents and the history of the amendments. And the subdivision itself hasn't expired by its terms. The language of it says that the subdivision approval could be rescinded if it wasn't completed timely. But it didn't say, as some of them do, that it's automatically rescinded if the developer fails to meet certain timeframes. And so the board, as far as what I've been able to find for recorded documents, never actually voted to rescind the subdivision, so it would still be active. And then also in 2002 issued another amendment ratifying the subdivision and modifying parts of it. And in that decision, it stated that the prior approvals were carried through except as modified. So the two of those together do show that the subdivision is still active. That being said, there are a list of issues that the developer was supposed to do. And although my clients purchased one of the lots, the developer of the subdivision didn't do some of those. We had talked about conditions that were specific to this lot and the board's concern with how that would be managed if this lot was to be built upon and the rest of the subdivision wasn't. Some of what was brought up was the 50-foot buffer to the main road and preserving that, and then some of the easements that run across the front of the property. And so what we had put in as a list of proposed conditions was just confirming essentially those same items that are in the documents, that the property, if it was released, any building permit would have a source of water. The construction would need to maintain the drainage, the open space trail, and the sightline easements that are depicted on the approved subdivision plans. Any driveway that was constructed on Century Mill Road would have to comply with the bylaws, and that it would have to be at least 35 feet away from the center line of the proposed Road A, which would ensure that building a house on this property wouldn't harm any of the other developments' ability to build fully as a subdivision when the rest of the subdivision was put into place and those requirements were met. The building permit plans would also need to retain the buffer along Century Mill Road, which requires no house or garage structures and limited cut and retreeing. It looks like there's a typo on that, for a minimum of 50 feet. And then any trees that were cut would need to be retreed according to the special permit that was issued. The way that we're making the request for release is under a specific provision of the subdivision covenant that says that post foreclosure owners can seek release under a lower standard. And that lower standard requires that there be utilities and access to a way. And so this lot does have that, even though the way isn't a subdivision lot, it's the main road of Century Mill Road. But it does meet the specific language of the covenant as far as what a release is required. It does preserve the requirements that were put in place for this subdivision, for this lot in the subdivision, with the buffers and the different aspects of that. And then what we also offered in there is, I understand that part of the background is frustration that the developer was supposed to be giving lots towards the affordable housing requirement or the affordable housing trust. So what we suggested is that if the lot were to be released, my client got a building permit and then got a certificate of occupancy, that they would pay in $10,000 towards the affordable housing trust that wouldn't be removing any requirements on the subdivision. That would just be a separate condition with respect to this release is what we're proposing as an offer. There was a question raised about how this parcel was was advertised when it was auctioned by the town. We did include the auction. It does note that the property is suitable for builders and investors. There's certainly nothing on there that advertises it as a non-buildable lot. My clients did enter into the tax taking agreement, believing that they would be able to build on this lot and that it wouldn't have to sit and wait for whatever happens with the rest of the subdivision and whatever that happens.
To that point, so thanks for that overview. That point, I believe, did you or your client speak with the town planner about the lot?
I
Prior to auction, it was.
Prior to auction, yes.
did not.
Okay.
So-
I believe your client did speak to town council I'm sorry, to town planner, who said that the lot was potentially unbuildable.
Well, I think potentially unbuildable and unbuildable are two different things. There's certainly, I mean, certainly looking at the documents, it's clear that there's a lot of things to be worked through. And so I think that's whether
Yeah,
or
I
not
think-
We did not speak with the Giuliano here. We purchased the lot, and we did not speak to the town planner before we purchased the lot. We believe that the advertisement was correct, and that's the reason we actually put a bid to purchase the lot.
Can I ask a question?
Go ahead.
So you purchased, so who was this land purchased from? It was purchased, so this is a lot.
So the tax foreclosure.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and the
On-
town auctioned off a number of properties through the auction process. They hired Zaka Group. Unfortunately, we didn't retain copies of the advertisement, but it clearly said that it may be encumbered and it was potentially unbuildable. In addition to that, there was a page created for each property, which had a disclosure stating that all properties are subject to any covenants on record, and the buyer must do their own independent investigation.
So, yeah, so it wasn't, I'm just making sure it's like it wasn't marketed poorly. No.
Not in my
And I'm
opinion.
not saying that it was marketed as a fully buildable lot. It was marketed as a tax auction. It's similar to a foreclosure auction.
Mhm.
You take it as it is and you figure it out, but it certainly wasn't advertised as non-buildable. And looking at the documents and looking at the exception for post foreclosure ownership, the property meets the exception that we're asking the planning board to recognize and release.
Now, that was my major point of disagreement the last time we talked, was that this lot was never meant to egress out onto Century Mill Road. It was meant to egress out onto a to-be-built road called Road A in the plans. The plans clearly show frontage on that road, and that is always how this lot was supposed to be. My bigger concern with us releasing a lot out of this is there a 30 or so other parcels of land, other lots here that, you know, people own. These are not owned by the developer who, you know, who defaulted on these. These are owned by trusts and other individuals and people who do hope to one day build on those lots. And so I do not, by releasing this lot, you know, I've said this puts us into a slippery slope of, now other people from those lots are going to come and say, hey, you know, why won't you release my lot? And so what's to prevent someone from, let's say, putting a shared driveway through the lot 78A and feeding one of the parcels above it, right? So this has to be treated as a subdivision. I understand it's, you know, it's frustrating that the subdivision is kind of frozen at the moment, but, you know, we have, you know, a number of issues with the developer. At some point, something's going to have to happen with the entire subdivision. But my stance is I am, you know, definitely not in favor of releasing this out of the covenant. So, you know, that's kind of what I said last meeting. I'll reiterate it again, and if anyone else on the board has thoughts or comments.
Yeah, so, hold on, I'm sorry. I mean, my thought is like, I feel for the owner, but like, I mean, like, the whole property is, designed based off the subdivision. So I don't know how you can really divide it out because like you were saying, Mike, like you have all the properties behind it who don't have access to the Century Mill Road. It's just so encumbered like in the overall subdivision. I don't even know like what would have to happen. Like you'd have to dissolve the current subdivision setup and then like redo it. I don't even know. I mean, but like you said, Mike, I mean, to just release them one or two, I don't really know how we could do that because it's not even a standard lot. Like, how are you going to build septic and water? I mean, can it even like, be built on that smaller lot size? I'm not even sure.
Actually, if you look at the map, a lot of lots are actually about the same size as this lot, less than 2 acres, but more than an acre on that street, and they all have residences in there. So I understand the concern about the other lots behind this lot, but it's a different situation because this lot has over 200 feet of frontage on Central Mill Roads. It's more than an acre, less than 2 acres. Bunch of other lots that are neighbors to this lot also has more than an acre and less than 2 acres. Things that got built to the subdivision to make this law be not released from the subdivision, but be able to meet the buildable requirements on this law. So it's not like we're looking for something that does not exist. It's right there when the town they agree with the subdivision requirements that was built into it. So not
Again,
anything.
This lot was never meant to have a driveway out onto Century Mill Road. That is one of my big sticking points with this. And then the second is again just the precedent that it sets for all the other lot owners in this. There's these two phases of the subdivision, 1 and 3, who are also in this holding pattern.
Yeah, and just to respond to that, I think there's 3 big points that separate this from the rest of the lots. 2 that separate it, and 1 with respect to the driveway. The driveway was probably meant to go to Road A, but none of the approval documents talk about a driveway. None of the recorded plans show a driveway. There's nothing in there that says the driveway needs to go to Road A, and there's nothing that would give a buyer of the lot an indication that they could not use Century Mill Road. It's just not in any of those documents or recorded plans. I've looked all the way through the title. And then as far as precedence goes, there's
I'm sorry, let me just answer that. So I mean, on the original, the subdivision plans, it lists frontage for that lot, and it shows the frontage on Road A. So to me, and the fact that the entire part of the parcel that buffers Century Mill Road is all set up as, easements and retreeing parcels. So I mean, I understand that they don't show the driveways on the plan, but I think that's just to give, flexibility to the developer and where they put things on each of those parcels. But I do not for 1 second think that there was ever meant to be a driveway going onto Century Mill Road.
I mean, yeah, I think before we did anything with any of these lots, I think we need to understand what's the precedence within the state for subdivisions that are dissolved. Like what do you do with the owners Like you know, I don't know if town council could speak on this. I don't know what the precedence is in the state, but like,
I think we're still, the fact that this was foreclosed on doesn't exempt it from complying with conditions of the subdivision, and there's a number of violations which
right,
prohibit.
but how do we,
building.
what is the precedence for this situation moving forward? Like, that's what I don't
I
understand.
think that's a different question though. Like
Yeah.
there is what do we do with the 30 some odd lots that are in the subdivision? And I don't want those to just be landlocked and have those people stuck there
Yeah.
forever. I mean,
Well, what I'm saying is I don't think we can do anything with those until we understand the current situation of like,
There's
we're in.
nothing, you acted on the subdivision in
Right.
2022, and there was no provisions to enact an automatic rescission, and there's been no public hearing to rescind the subdivision. So right now, it's an open subdivision with various violations of conditions which prohibit the issuance of permits.
and they did,
Yeah.
their road permits have expired. Like they did have other permits that are all expired. So while I understand that the subdivision itself hasn't expired, you know,
Yeah, I'm not disagreeing. I'm just saying I would like to understand moving forward what's the path.
I'm sorry, Ms. Crowe, I cut you off from, you were making some other points there. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, that's okay. Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to distinguish this lot from the rest of the subdivision and the concern about the common driveways and different ways of getting access. I think the only potential lot that could make the same argument is the one on the opposite side of Road A. And I'm not sure, considering the way their easements are set up, whether or not they could even attempt to make access to Century Mill. But while Road A is not constructed, the other lots would not have frontage. And Road A can't be constructed until the rest of the violations in the subdivision become cured. We're not seeking to construct Road A, nor do we, because we're looking to put access out on Century Mill. So I think from that aspect, releasing this property is much different than the other lots that are inside of the subdivision. The other part of it is that we're seeking a release under the post foreclosure specific exemption in the subdivision documents that allow a looser standard to release the property. So you need to have both things. You need to have a post foreclosure lot, and you'd have to have an independent basis for frontage and access. And so I don't think that you need to be worried about, I shouldn't say that. I don't know what arguments people will make, but I think that this is clearly distinguishable from the rest of the properties.
I still don't think that qualifies it for some exemption. I mean, we would not release any other lot from this. If any other lot owner came to this board and said, can you release us from the covenant, we would say no. And because this property abuts CME, I don't think that actually matters.
Well, I think if you look at the language of the covenant that says that the lots can be released as long as they have utilities and access on a way, I think that it contemplates this very situation where there might be issues with the subdivision, but the planning board wasn't going to hold that against the post foreclosure owner.
I still say that the road being referenced in that is Road A and not Century Mill Road. Because that applies to every other parcel, every other lot in the subdivision, not just this one or two special ones that happen to abut existing roadways.
No, we actually purchased that law for that reason, that we had enough frontage on Central Mill, and the town was selling the lot, so we didn't try to buy a lot that was inside Central Mill. We simply bought a lot that has enough frontage on Central Mill, and we understand that the agreement with the subdivision and the town allow those things to take place. So it's not like we choose, we just follow what is in writing. We didn't pick and choose to have a law that was landlocked. and we own it. We pick and choose a lot that the town was selling. We bid against other people. We won the bid, and we are follow what was in writing by the town in the subdivision agreement.
I understand that, but I think it was mistaken about that this lot could be released. Just
I
because it
think
has
if it was a mistake, should be argued that when the town and the subdivision got into agreement, not, you know, afterwards, but before we follow, you know, we spend money, we took savings to purchase the property to be able to build a house in there. It's not like we're just gonna, you know, gamble. We thought that was properly written between the town and the subdivision, and that's what we choose to do.
I understand. I mean, that's, you know, the problem with a tax auction is I mean, you have to do due diligence on where things are.
We did. It's in writing what we did. The problem with tax auction, I think, is some other issues with it, but what we chose to do was because it was in writing. We understood the risk we're taking, and I don't take us for anything more than what is our right to do it. And I feel bad for the other people too. And I spoke to the developer about the other lots, and I spoke to, you know, other people about, you know, the road and how much is gonna ended up costing to put that road in there. And I think that's why they, you know, they didn't develop the road. It's too much ledge in there. I don't know if they're gonna do it or not, but you know, that's not what we are here for.
Yeah, so I mean, like I feel for you and all the owners and that are tied up in this, but like, say we released yours and we released the one on, you know, a shared driveway builds 3 on the other side. Like now these properties in back have to cover the cost of the road without your lot, a few other lots, which makes it even harder. So I don't know how we can release one lot without having an overall plan for the entire group. Personally.
Yeah, and I think just to correct for what we're asking to be released so that we can get a building permit. We're not asking to be released from the subdivision. It's still a part of the subdivision. It will remain a part of the subdivision. We're asking for a release from the covenant that says you can't get a building permit until all of the conditions are done, which includes like the Affordable House Trust and the different things, but the lot would remain part of the subdivision. The request for the release is to allow us to get a building permit.
But then, like, you know, I mean, I'm just arguing, you know, so say you went and did that, then like, what's our ability to hold you to bond for the road and stuff? Like, you've already kind of like, you're in, you moved in. There's, you know, we're not going to knock the house down. So it's like, how do we get bond from you? It's just so many questions. I don't know.
Right, and that's
Personally,
where, I mean,
yeah.
the developer is responsible for the road until it turns over to a subdivision association, and there's no subdivision association because or at least there's not all of the mechanisms that you'd see in a typical subdivision haven't been put
Right.
into place here. But you know, we're sort of focusing on the what ifs, but I think the point that we're making or trying to make is that the subdivision documents that were approved and recorded contemplate this type of situation. And yeah, maybe they didn't contemplate the way being Century Mill Road, but it doesn't say which way it is. It just says that they can build upon the lots so long as ways and utilities have been provided to serve such lot. So if this lot was on the other side of the subdivision where the road had already been created, then the same argument could be made to use the subdivision way. But here, this side was never built, and so there is no way that goes up. So if there's somebody built in there, they need to have access, they need to have the road, and they need to comply with they need to pull together the subdivision to be able to.
I'm sorry to
build
interrupt you, but I
some of
mean, I
those.
think you just made the point that the road has not been constructed. Like that is the central point here, that the provision that you keep referencing is talking about the road to be constructed, not the existing roadway.
But it doesn't say that though. It just says a way. A way can be anything. I mean, it can't be anything, but a way is a way. It's not
Yeah.
specific to the subdivision ways.
I
Pam,
mean,
what was,
I don't,
I could argue that you wouldn't have a covenant on a public road that was intended to service a lot.
what was did town council weigh on this? I forget.
No, we haven't communicated with town council
thi-
on this.
I mean, I think that's step one.
And I think
probably.
it's unlikely to be approved at this point.
I mean, don't you think that's like the first? I mean, we clearly can't just, go willy-nilly and do it, but like, it would be interesting to see what town council has to say and what the state precedence is. I mean, I don't know. I just don't know the way forward.
I think there's a subdivision that's not in compliance with conditions, which allows the issuance of a building permit. I think this lot is encumbered by drainage easements, slope easements, and a tree restoration area, which we don't have bond for.
Right. Yeah, I feel like bond is a major issue.
And
Like-
I wouldn't feel comfortable releasing it, given the conditions that exist.
I just want to know in general, what's the path forward for this property?
it's not just this property, it's
Oh,
all
oh,
of phase 1 and phase
I'm
3.
saying,
and
I'm saying all of phase 1 and 3 when I say property.
Yeah.
I want to know what the path forward is.
Right. I think that's something that Pam can do research on and we can figure it out, but it's not up to the planning board to go and build a road. I mean, we need a developer to work,
Oh, sure.
in agreement with all the lot owners.
I'm
in
not saying
phases
we
1
take
and
it over,
3.
Mike. I just want to
Yeah.
understand legally what's the path forward is all.
Yeah, I agree. I think, is it just a matter of building the road, or is there more to this? Because if it's
I
just
mean,
building
it's far
the road-
more. I mean, it's the entire
It's
subdivision.
far more, yeah.
Right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's half the
I mean-
subdivision has been built, and the half that has been built isn't even exactly finished.
I mean,
So-
all these lots are 100% based on the public road going through this thing. And you're saying more
Not a
than
pub-
one, you were
It's
saying
a-
more than one, but
not
less than
public,
two, but
it's a road.
a road, sorry. A subdivision road, but like you're saying more than one, less than two, but it's probably not an actual A&R lot. I'm not sure, like.
It's not,
you
it's
know,
part of a subdivision.
Yeah, right.
No, but they
So-
have a lot, they were granted as part of the special permit approval, a reduction in lot size is the Fosford decision.
Right, so what I'm saying is it can't even stand on its own. It'd
Right.
have to be part of the subdivision, but like, I don't understand how we could release a lot on the subdivision where, there's no road and like, it's just so tied up, encumbered. I don't see what we can do, like Mike said, as a planning board. And I think the first steps is to get town council and, understand the path forward for the property as a whole.
Yeah, I mean, I think part of the issue, part of why this is different from most things is that when you have an unfinished subdivision, typically they're all still owned by the developer. And so the developer can sell, can do whatever, and then take what it is. But the town wasn't getting taxes and went through, at least in this particular case, with foreclosing on the property and separating it out of the subdivision. And now we're being told, creating an issue where we can't build on it, even though it complies with these other different aspects that are built in there. But it's not owned by the developer, and so we don't have any control over the rest of the development. So we were just sitting here waiting after helping the town get their tax money that they've had and have tax money coming up. And that doesn't fit the language, and it just doesn't fit a sense of fairness either, because it was, at least in this case, a town that separated the properties.
I mean, I do agree with you. Like I said, the majority of the lots in these two undeveloped phases, phase 1 and 3, are not owned by the developer. They're owned by individual people or other trusts. So, I mean, they're all in the exact same situation as your client. And it's unfortunate. We don't want that for anybody. We want nothing more than for this, the subdivision to be built. But I mean, this is where we are.
I disagree with you on that. Our research, most of the lots in there, I think maybe 2 lots are not owned by people that did business developer that purchase bulk lots. So it's not like there was only one on only another lot, two more lots, one that's across the road from us, and the one behind us that got sold on a tax auction to regular people that was not investors that bought those lots from the developer before. So on a tax auction was 3 lots sold. 2 have frontage on Mill Road and 1 did not. The one that did not have frontage on Mill Road was very specific, saying that it had no frontage on Mill Pond Road and could not be developed. The 2 that have frontage on Mill Pond Road was the one that we bought, and the other one that somebody else bought. And those 2 was very clear, saying that there was enough frontage on Mill Pond Road to ask for a building permit. All the other lots that are researched to figure out who the owners were. It's still the developer that was supposed to build the subdivision, and some investors that were making deals with him on phases built before that last phase. So it's not like, I understand your concern that it's a bunch of individuals that purchased the lots in there and they're ready to build and this and that, but that's not the case. The case
Point is,
is
it's not the developer. And I mean, again, that's,
some are the development. The developer is still on, if I'm not mistaken, 17 lots out of the 30 lots. He still own the 17 lots in there. And National Lumber own like, I think 7 lots. And some of the investor own a couple more lots. And we own 1 lot. And I don't know if the other people ended up purchasing the other lot across the street from us and the one behind us. I'm not sure about that. But it was very clear on marketing done through the tax auction that those lots had enough frontage on Mill Pond Road. Yeah, they're undersized. They're not full 2 acres, but like I say, if you go on the street and look the GSI map, most of the lots in there are less than 2 acres and more than 1 acre.
I'm curious to see what I'm curious to see what town council would have to say about this,
I don't know, we're gonna,
if it's
get that
possible.
approved, yeah. The owner of lot 1A backed out of the deal, so that's still owned by the town of Bolton.
And we're talking about 78A.
We're talking about 78A, yes.
Yeah,
What we're
that's
hearing.
a really hard driveway to install in there. And
I-
I'm not
I
sure
think-
what the
as I've said, I mean, I'm not in favor of releasing this lot from the covenant. If anyone else on the board has questions. Or
Yeah, Mike, I've heard a lot about the way this was advertised and what due diligence was done, but I would be very interested in seeing exactly how it was advertised. When I hear that
Yeah,
the town advertised it with enough frontage so that a building permit could be pulled, I find that very, very strange.
can anybody share the advertising piece?
Baker Group wouldn't share the materials and they're not property of the town of Bolton, so we didn't have them to recreate, but I do have the disclosure form that we kept.
Do you have Kim? I know you
Yeah,
sent
I
it.
have the one that we attached to the letter. I'm just opening it on my screen.
I can share the disclosure for this property.
If I can show the auction. Oh, the screen sharing's disabled.
The one you sent, Kristen? I can,
Yeah, I was going to do the one.
that was part of
attached.
your letter?
Right, mhm,
Yeah, I can share that.
thank you.
Oh, the JPEG's not showing on my PDF. Let me pull it from the email. Just give me 1 second.
mean, regardless of what,
Hold
I see the advertisement that, Ms. Crowhigh, you included in there. And again, that says ideal for builders, investors, and abutters. I mean, that is what, these parcels are, right?
Right.
This
And
can be an
also
investment parcel.
Right. It also describes 1.78 acre parcel along Century Mill Road, distinguishing from the 1.1 acre interior parcel.
Sure. I mean, I think it's locating where it is. I
Can
mean,
you increase
and
the size?
I'm sure there was something else that said, do due diligence. And I believe, your client talked to Pam. And if not, I mean, a simple email to the board would have said that, this would be problematic for us to release this.
Can you show the flyer, Pam, that you were showing?
on. Yeah,
Eric, it's in the packet that Pam sent. So you
Oh,
should have
okay,
that already.
sorry. All right, sorry.
I don't know why it's not showing up on the PDF for
Oh,
some reason.
I can
but
open it
have
up if it's in the packet.
Are you seeing that? It should
Yeah.
be. Okay.
Not big enough to read though.
Oh,
Yeah, if you can
And
increase it.
for everyone on the board, this was in your packet that Pam
Yeah.
sent for the March 12th, 2025 agenda information.
Is the same one that you sent?
This is what she sent to
Yeah,
us,
this is
yes.
what I had sent.
I'd have
But
to
there's
go
nothing in there that indicates that it's buildable.
or not buildable. Yeah.
Right. It references as ideal for builders, investors, and abutters and gives it the size along Century Mill Road.
But what I just heard was that it was represented as having enough frontage so that a building permit could be issued. Maybe I missed that.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
don't-
can you share the GSI map? Because GSI map has 213 feet along Mill Pond Road.
The
There's
frontage
also-
of Century
I-
Mill Road doesn't matter. That is the planning board's contention here.
No, we do have 213 feet on the Central Mill Pond Road.
Century Mill Road.
Right.
Yes.
There wasn't a representation by the town or the auctioneer that by this lot, you can get a building permit. That representation was not made, but a combination of looking at the advertisement with it along Century Mill Road, reviewing the current documents that are recorded, the plans, the covenant, the subdivision approvals, the special permit, and the exception for post foreclosure properties. The conclusion is that this property is ripe, is allowable to be released for a building permit, that there is an exception that would apply to this property that does not apply to the other properties that are not in the same situation.
But again, that's your conclusion.
Yeah. I mean, I think this wording is pretty clear. I mean, it seemed like you needed to do due diligence up front.
Yeah, we have the
And that was
frontage,
done.
right, we have the frontage. The,
regardless of that, there's no mention of exempting the lot from conditions required in the subdivision approval. And we're at a point where there's violations in the current conditions and we're not apt to disregard those violations and release additional lots from the subdivision from the covenant.
I mean, yeah.
the subdivision has a foreclosure saying
Yeah.
there.
So if you look at the covenant, so paragraph 2 says the owners will not sell or convey, and there won't be any building permits until construction of all of the ways and municipal services necessary to adequately serve each lot has been done in accordance with the covenant. And I'm paraphrasing, trying to not hold everybody up word for word, but and any conditions, agreements, and provisions specified are complied with. That's paragraph 2. Paragraph 3, notwithstanding the foregoing, after foreclosure, a lot can be released to be built upon when there's ways and utilities that have been provided to serve such lot. So yes, this was a foreclosure. There was due diligence done, and there's language in the covenant that is specific to the situation that this lot is in. So that's the request that we're making.
And my disagreement is with the way, the road. The road has not been built. So this cannot, like, you can't tell me that that paragraph was put in there expressly for the two parcels that abutted an existing road. I don't believe that's the case.
I mean, the paragraph could have handled 1,000 different situations depending on what was done or what wasn't done. In this case, we have half the subdivision that was completed and half wasn't. So it could apply to Century Mill Road, just as it could apply to an interior way in a different set of circumstances and a different set of facts.
I mean, I don't agree with that interpretation.
I have a question. It's a little bit different, if I may.
Sure.
I went back and read through the documents for the development. It does say that before a building permit was issued, potable water would have to be developed. It was my understanding that this development was always planned on being a public water supply for at least the other portions of the site. And it also seems like they're, the smaller lot size combined with adjacent abutters septic systems, plus even this lot's proposed septic system would, it would be very difficult, maybe possible, but very difficult to develop a water supply that wouldn't infringe on the abutters' abilities to build on their lots. Is there not a requirement, or was it done, that the Board of Health would have to see proposed septic system layouts as part of the development plan? I didn't see it at least on the website documents. Like, do they
Mike, that's a good point. It doesn't need to be in the conditions. All development would be subject to Board of Health review and Title V requirements.
But do we know where the other septic systems for other properties or this property were planned on being?
We do not on this portion of the subdivision.
No, but like
That's a good
that,
point.
it was to be developed as a whole, not as an individual. Same thing with stormwater.
Right.
Stormwater is developed as a whole. Like, how does the water run down the driveway? How does it, where does all the drainage happen? I mean, everything is conditioned as a whole, so it's tough to take any individual lot out.
Right, and then the smaller lot size, I assume, was one of the conditions that was thought of at the time the planning board approved it, was smaller lot sizes with no adjacent wells and no adjacent, and that allows you to have a little bit more dense. When you have
it's
public water
basically it's what we've been talking about with phosphate and stuff. But
and
like,
then there's other conditions in those documents that I was reading. Safe access for fire protection vehicles and police. The water supply has to be sufficient for fire protection. I mean, wouldn't that be something, or would you also, would this one lot be meeting all of those requirements to provide safe access for all of the requirements of the subdivision, I guess? Even things like going to the commission, the Conservation Commission before the phase of that construction starts is a requirement of the subdivision. We're talking about one thing, which is the frontage, but there's a laundry list of conditions on the subdivision that aren't being covered in this.
I mean, I agree. It's designed as a whole. I mean, I don't think there's anything we can do tonight, like as a planning board here, to release it. Like, I think moving forward, for all the owners, I think as a planning board, we should find out what the path forward is personally. And I think the first step in that is talking to town council. I don't know if we need to look at precedents. I mean, and maybe town council would come up with precedents within the state. There's nothing we can do tonight. I don't see how it's possible, but I would like to understand the path forward for the owners.
Yep, I agree with that. Any other comments? We've gone fairly long tonight, so.
Yeah, no, I would just respond that to the last point that was raised, that the lot would need to meet all of the fire and access and everything else independently, that would all be part of the building permit, and Board of Health and all those other permits would need to be obtained for the lot if it was released. So it would have a full scale review to make sure that it was compliant, but I am hearing that we're not going anywhere with this anymore, so I'm not going to take up
It's,
that much time with the argument, but I did just want to clarify that point.
Yeah,
it's just
I understand
tough.
it's a tough situation, and we,
Yeah.
like Eric said, I mean, I think, again, it's not up to the board to develop the rest of the subdivision, but for us to at least understand what some other developer would need to do to come in and start that process is, I think that's where we can hopefully get a little information on.
Unfortunately, it's not feasible right now as far as research. I think we just need to get to the town council and discuss that with him on the language that apply to our lot. I mean, right now, not really. We didn't bought the other lots, so we don't know what's going on with the other ones. We understand that, it's a big task for any developer to take the whole project on the way it is, but we care about, the lot that we have.
Yeah, I mean, town council is the first step. Like, I don't know what, I mean, there may be some state precedents where.
Hang on. Let's be clear. Like, we do not need town council right now to.
Oh, of course we do.
We do.
You have different opinions. We do. It's
No, we do
opinions are opinions. What is being writing to the subdivision agreement between the town and the developer, and the way we purchase the property, it's in writing. They are not opinion, they're facts. So I think
I don't
that's
think,
why.
Mike, I don't think we can do anything. I mean, there's nothing we can do tonight.
We
agree.
are not releasing the lot. That's what
100% for sure.
That's what we're not doing.
We
Yeah.
can't release the lot, but I do think that we should ask town council
I agree.
what the path forward is. I mean, I would like to understand. I was asking, I want to understand, how this property moves forward, and I don't have the knowledge to say that. We just need town council, but 100% agree. There's nothing we can do tonight. We can't release it, in my opinion, but I do want to understand what the path forward is.
Pam, do you want us to take a vote on this?
I think we should.
Okay.
They can always
I'm-
resubmit a request to withdraw the property from covenant at a future date once conditions are different.
I make a motion to disapprove the request for release of covenant for lot 78A, Century Mill Estates.
Second.
Mike, can we reconsider that motion? Just incorporate some conditions?
Sure.
Which include the existing violations of, I wrote it out in the email. Hold on, I closed
Would you
it
like
when I
would
was
you like
going
me
through
to
it.
state the reasons why?
Yes,
Is that-
please.
Okay. I make a motion to disapprove the request for release of covenant for lot 78A, Century Mill Estates, due to the number of failure to comply with conditions within the subdivision, including provision of affordable lot prior to issuance of the 43rd building permit, the frontage of lot 78A on Century Mill Estate is encumbered by a drainage easement, a site easement, and the 50-foot buffer of trees. Others, or is that okay, Pam?
Releasing the lot without the required performance security in place to ensure the requirements of the subdivision approval are completed is not permissible.
Okay. Releasing this lot from covenant without the required performance security in place to ensure the requirements of the subdivision are completed is not permissible. Placement of a driveway within the required 50-foot buffer would require an amendment to the subdivision approval.
Second.
Michael Gore,
Aye.
James Barr,
Aye.
Austin Groner,
Aye.
Robert Romer,
Aye.
Eric Nyland.
Aye.
The motion passes by a vote of 5-0.
Right. I'm sorry, guys. I wish, we had better news for you. We do hope to have, to get this subdivision up and completed at some point in the future.
Pam, could you, ask town council to look into this?
Yeah,
just
there's
for
a
our
variety
knowledge?
of ways it could move forward. You can separate, file an amendment and proceed with it as a separate project.
Yeah, so as a member of the planning board, I would like to have that knowledge, so if it could somehow get documented and town council could weigh in, it would be nice to understand.
Yeah, I agree.
I agree. Awesome.
Okay, thank you. Next item on the agenda is approval of minutes from December 18th, 2024. Everyone get a chance to read through those? All right. I will make a motion to approve the minutes from December 18th, 2024.
Second.
Michael Gore. Robert Romer.
Aye.
Excuse me, Michael Lau.
Aye.
Austin Groner.
I
And James Barr.
Aye.
The minutes passed by a vote of 5-0.
Okay, I don't see the agenda item for other business, but Pam, is there other business or what's coming up at the next meeting?
The next meeting, we have a special permit for a HVAC manufacturing use at 58A Main Street.
Oh, is that Cobham, Eric?
Problem, yeah.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
And we also
And-
have a scenic road hearing for additional trees to be removed on Main Street
Is that it?
as part of the Rotary project. And some of them
Uh-huh.
are located on Green Road, so they fall under the scenic road bylaw.
When's the Rotary getting going? This summer?
Supposed to start any day now.
Oh.
They're marking things out, and that's when they identified it to additional trees weren't approved for removal.
That'll be fun.
Is Century Mill Road a scenic road?
Green Road.
No, I mean,
Century Mill?
the
Let me
Century
check.
Mill, a scenic road, or just draw that?
Bring up the bylaw.
Yes, it is on the scenic road list.
I just had a quick question with Baba Sushi is there anything, was there any update with what's going on there?
The ZBA approved the construction of the exterior patio for additional seating. The interior renovations have started. And it's going to be a family fare, restaurant, pub type thing.
Is it the patio out back or in front?
Patios in the front, and they are demolishing the existing wooden deck.
Excellent, thank you.
You're welcome.
Pam, anything else we need to do for the bylaws at this point, or are we?
We have to make a
Imagine-
recommendation at town meeting. I don't know if you typically do that in writing or verbally. You have the
So
option
we-
to do either.
We usually submit that beforehand, so it goes out in the town warrant so generally it'll have, for zoning articles, it'll have the select board's vote and the planning board's vote.
Yep.
Okay,
Printed.
then I'll just
Yeah.
relay that into the draft of the articles.
Yeah. So I don't know if we need to take a separate vote. I mean, we voted to,
No, you voted to
Forward
make a
them.
recommendation of approval of all the bylaw
Okay.
amendments at town
Okay.
meeting, so that would cover that.
And
Right.
I don't know if this is like a legal spiel, but we always had to be like at a duly noted meeting, the planning board
yeah, that's
voted,
the language that we read on the floor,
yeah,
for sure.
yeah. Like
And
we
that was
had
our
to say that-
last, yeah, our last meeting and this meeting, that's what
Yeah,
that was.
exactly, yeah. So,
Public hearing for those.
yeah, but it's always
Ye-
printed in there saying that.
Okay, I'll look at an old one.
Yeah.
It's not in the
Yeah.
draft as of right now, so
I don't-
I'll make sure it's
No,
added.
Eric, I don't think it is it's not in the warrant article. I think it's in that sheet that we read.
No, it's in the Warren article. It
is it?
says how we voted to recommend it. Yeah,
I'll look back and see how it was historically
Yeah.
done.
yeah.
Okay.
But also we do, I mean, I don't know if we always read that little paragraph before every, you know, we were told that we had to, you know, at a duly noted meeting.
We do that when we present it on the floor, for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah, exactly.
The warrant doesn't say that, though. It's just a one-liner.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
Okay, so you make your recommendation then on town meeting floor with the vote indicated in the article.
This is,
But it's been printed in the article.
Okay, I'll check.
but-
We don't need
okay,
to
This is
argue
this is
over
a
it.
dumb thing to
Yeah.
argue about. Okay, it's been a long meeting. Does anyone else have anything else they want to
Nope.
talk about? No.
Nope.
Oh,
Back
I'm
to-
sorry. At the next meeting too, I forgot a major one. We're gonna be hearing, the reviewing the information for Goose Pond Path,
Oh, for road
for
acceptance.
street acceptance, yes.
Okay. So this is the one, the kind of kitty corner from the high school.
Yeah.
By Forbes
Tajman,
Mill.
yeah.
Fairly small section of the road.
So
Yes,
that's gonna be
it's-
that's in the warrant draft as well?
Yes,
Yeah, okay.
We don't present it though, select board does, or we don't sponsor it.
you make a recommendation.
Yeah.
So they'll be referring it to you at tomorrow evening's meeting for consideration.
Okay. So next meeting, March 26th, 7:30 still okay for people?
Good for me. Is that our last meeting that I guess unless things change will be remote?
Correct.
I mean, they'll probably extend it. They always do.
Well, I mean, so I don't know if you all got that email from
I
Jenny
did, yeah.
Jacobson. Yeah, so I mean, they're trying to pass it as a law. I imagine that'll pass. I mean, definitely email in support if you like it and say that it works well for you.
Okay.
Okay, so 7:30, March 26th. Anything else people want to go through?
Nope.
No, okay.
Make it end.
Long
Mike.
meeting, guys. Thank you for hanging in there. And we'll talk later on. So with that, I will make a motion to adjourn.
Seconded.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Okay. Good night, everyone. Thank you,
Good night.
Pam.
All right.
Thank you, everybody.